What's up, guys? It's Phil here. Got the first ever video coming at you with the second draft through r/Kuroko's basketball, the subreddit dedicated to Kuroko's basketball. We did the first draft last week, and I had a video recorded for that, but there was something wrong with the editing. And by the time we did the second draft, that only took about a day. Figured I would just record the second draft since things went a little smoother with that one. So we're here with the second draft that we did. Let's go ahead and go over a little bit of the format before we actually get into the draft. There were 6 teams as opposed to 8 in the first draft. We actually removed the Jabberwock players. That's why we went down from 8 players to 6. And in this one, we added an additional round. In the first draft, we did just 5 rounds. Figured in this draft, we would do 6 total rounds. That way, a 6th man could be taken into play. So every player available other than Jabberwock. This is a snake format. It means the pick order reverses every round. It means in the first round, if the draft order went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in the second round, the draft order would go 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That way, if you draft last in the first round, you'll draft first in the second round, and then it reverses after that. So if you drafted first in the first round, you'll draft last in the second round, and then back to first in the third round, so on. I decided to just make it a little bit easier to remove the off-court chemistry issues. So players like Hanamiya and Hizaki and their behavior off the court doesn't need to necessarily be taken into account. The on-court chemistry does need to be taken into account though, so you don't want to have 5 centers out there. You want to actually have a good build for your team. And then lastly, the voting was conducted by the subreddit just via commenting. People voted for their top 3 teams, and the teams were awarded points for their placement. A first place vote was worth 3 points, a second place vote was worth 2 points, and a third place vote worth 1 point. The winner being determined by overall total points and not necessarily total first place votes. So last draft we actually had someone who had the most first place votes. They ended up only taking third. So it's about total points and not just first place votes. Alright, that's basically the rules and the format, guys. Other than that, we had a lot of people participate in the last one, so thank you for that. A lot of people applied to participate in this one. Obviously, we can only take 6, so thank you for everyone who did apply. I would recommend applying again so you can obviously participate in the future. We ended up randomizing the draft order before the draft started, and the first overall pick went to Yoshi. Now, with their first overall pick, no surprise here, Yoshi decided to select Akashi Seijiro, point guard from Rakuten High. Now, Akashi is a guy who's known for winning. He's a natural-born leader. A few other things he's known for is his Emperor Eye, his ankle-breaking ability, and his perfect rhythmed plays. Having a feel for the game on a level I'm not sure can be reached by anyone, you got Akashi Seijiro here as your number 1 overall pick in this week's draft. Moving on to pick number 2 here, we have Jamie. Now, with the second overall pick in the draft, Jamie decided to select Irene Daiki, power forward from 2 Academy. Now, obviously, here in the first round, I don't think there's necessarily a bad pick, but I think when Iomin is still on the board, you pretty much have to take this guy. So, good pick there by Jamie. A few things Iomin's known for here is his formless shot, his speed and agility, and his street ball abilities. His raw basketball ability is something that puts Iomin above just about anyone else on the court. I'd say when you draft Iomin, the rest of your team really needs to be built around getting the ball to him, though. Looking ahead to round 2 and 3, I think really you're going to look for a guy who can maybe space the floor. So I'd look out for maybe a shooting guard to get taken by Jamie in round 2, maybe round 3. He still has a chance to maybe go with one of the big uncrowned kings in the second round, or I guess really depends on availability. He's got the second pick in the first round here, so he's not going to be picking until late second round. Now moving on to the third overall pick, we had Zeman. Zeman decided to build his team around the big man himself, Murasakibara Atsushi from Yosen. Now, a few things that Murasakibara is known for is his defending. They say his range is pretty much any area within the 3-point line. He's not just a savage on defense with that Thor's hammer. This guy has known to put up big numbers on the offensive end. And one thing he didn't pick up until towards the end of the series was the Vice Claw that he picked up from Kiyoshi Tepe from Serene. Now this is my favorite player. I'm really happy to see him actually go third overall. He was the leader of a team that gave up 0 points in the Winter Cup tournament twice. I think that is absolutely bonkers, and for him to be leading the defensive charge on that, giving up 0 points twice, is unreal. So having him picked here at third is a great pick by Zeman. Looking ahead, Zeman really has the door wide open in terms of who he can select. Obviously, he's looking to get a ball handler here in the second round, but I think realistically getting anyone from the 1 to the 3 is suitable. I think you'd want to stay away from the 4 spot, the power forward position, but I think getting a point guard, shooting guard, or small forward, I think are all in play. Moving ahead here to the 4th pick in the first round, we had Ballin. Now Ballin decided to go with Midorima Shintaro from Shutoku High. Midorima is known for his high arcing 3, his perfect accuracy, and his limitless range. I think this is a great pick. Realistically, having just Midorima, Issei, and Kagami left, I think you get a guy that can shoot from anywhere on the court at, like it says, perfect accuracy is dangerous. Now looking ahead in the draft, I think you'd really want to pair Midorima with Takao. Not necessarily looking at getting Takao in the second round, so I think in the second round maybe go for a big man, but it really all depends obviously on who's available. That's the nice part about the drafts is anyone can get taken at any time, so people always need to be on their toes and have to change up their game plans as the draft goes on. I will say though, there is a lot of pressure here on Ballin in the second round. Can't just throw any 4 guys out there with Midorima. Midorima's not a guy like Ayumin who can just play with any 4 guys. You really need to build your team around a guy like Midorima. So I think the pressure is on Ballin here in round 2 to make the right pick. Really support Midorima. Don't know if you're going to go 1, 3, 4, 5 here, but it's going to be interesting. Moving right along to pick 5. Don't think any surprise that Shadow decided to select Kisei. Small forward from Kaijo, Kisei is known for his perfect copy, his zone ability, and his modeling on the side. Kisei is a good pick here, obviously sliding down here to the 5th overall pick. He's one of those guys that can go realistically anywhere in the first round. Shadow's got to be happy, especially coming up with the 2nd pick in the second round. He can really get almost anyone he wants. Obviously, we've got one person here taking back-to-back picks to close out the first and open up the second, but there's still a lot of guys on the board, so pretty much Shadow's got just about anyone available he's looking at. And obviously, to close out the first round Kuroko play here, no doubt he has to take Kagami, the last of the miracle level players. Now, obviously, you feel bad that Kuroko play is almost obligated to take Kagami, but Kagami is no sham here. He's known for his jumping power, his meteor jam, and his zone ability. Kagami also has potentially one of the highest potentials in the league, so I don't think that's a bad pick here for Kuroko, especially knowing that he's got the next pick as well. Though I think Kagami is one of those guys that you do have to build around. So Kuroko is going to have to be smart, be meticulous in who he selects here in the second round. Because after he takes the pick here next in the second round, he's not picking again until the end of the third. There's going to be a big gap there, so he really needs to take his time, select carefully, because he's not going to be selecting again until the end of the third. There's a big gap of players between who he's going to be able to select next and who's going to be available in this next pick. Now, it's tough to say who's got the best team after just one round here, so we're not going to really get into who I'm liking after just one round. Obviously, there's only 6 guys realistically at that miracle level, so at that point, it's pretty much just a personal opinion of who I think is the better of the miracles. So moving right along to the second round, Kuroko play with his back-to-back pick. He took Kagami in the first round, decides to take Kiyoshi Tepe in the second. Now, I'm not sure how much I like that pick. You've got a power forward in Kagami, so I don't know why you would then back him up with a center. Now, obviously, Kiyoshi's played with Kagami before. They have that repertoire and that chemistry, so that is a benefit. But I'm just not sure if Kiyoshi's the guy you want to necessarily pair him up with, especially right away in the second round. Now, obviously, Kiyoshi is a good ball distributor, but I think you really want a guy who's able to bring the ball up the court almost every time to pair with Kagami here. So it's going to be interesting to see what Kuroko decides to do in the third round and take in the third. Obviously, he still has that big gap. He's going to be not selecting again until the end of the third round. It's going to be interesting to see who's still available. Gonna be having to get probably a point guard or a shooting guard in the third round here if you're Kuroko play. Now we've got Shadow here with the second pick in the second round. He took Kisei in the first round and decided to pair Kisei up with Hanamiya, point guard from Kurosaki Daiichi. Now I don't think that's a bad pick. Hanamiya is obviously genius level, potentially one of the smartest people in the entire league. So that's actually a good pick. He's going to know how to use Kisei's ability for the best. Obviously Hanamiya is a player coach as well, so using him in that regard actually might be the best thing to pair Kisei up with. Now, me personally, I would have paired Kisei up with another offensive juggernaut, maybe another shooter or someone who can actually score. Hanamiya is not necessarily a bad offensive weapon, but he's not really known for pure scoring. I think Kisei already has a lot of offensive power. I think pairing someone up with him who also brings offensive potential just overloads that offensive power, and I think in this tournament, offense is going to be way more important than defense. Either way, looking ahead, we had Ballin who decided to take Midorima in the first round. Pairs Midorima up with Haizaki Shogo, small forward from Fukuda Sogo. Now, Haizaki is perhaps the next closest thing to a miracle after Kagami, maybe after Himuro. So, a top talent to pair here with Midorima. Looking at the offensive possibilities between those two, that's dangerous. With Heizaki's ability to pillage another team's ace scorer potentially, I just don't know how a team's actually going to keep up with Midorima's scoring. So that's actually a really smart pick by Ballin here in the second. We've got Zeman next. He had Miro Sakabara in the first round, decided to pair him up with Kuroko Tetsuya from Seirin High. Now that's an interesting choice in my opinion. Obviously there's off-court chemistry issues that don't matter, I'll remind everyone, so whether Kuroko likes Mira Sakabara or not doesn't need to be taken into play here. On-court chemistry does matter, and I don't think Mira Sakabara is a guy you need to necessarily use Kuroko's misdirection to get the ball to. So that's actually an interesting pick. I don't know if I necessarily would have done that because, like I said, I don't think you need Kuroko to get the ball down low into the paint. I think you can just dump the ball down low and let Mira Sakabara work. That's an interesting pick. We're going to see who Zeman decides to take in the third round and pair up. I think you're going to be looking at maybe getting another shooter. Kuroko obviously isn't much of a shooter, so at this point you've got just your offensive power in Miri Sakabara and Kuroko just playing that supporting role. Personally, I would have been looking at a guy like maybe Mabuchi. You've got the big man down low, you really want to space the court when you've got someone that works in the paint. Guy like Mabuchi who can score lethally from behind the three-point line, obviously I would say maybe the second best three-point shooter in the league, I think is who I would look to build with a guy like Miri Sakibara who's going to dominate the paint. He's going to really suck in the rest of the defense. Whenever he gets the ball in the paint, a lot of the defenders are going to have to drop down low to try and get support. So you're going to have those three-point shooters standing on the three-point line almost wide open. Guy with the quick trigger like Mabuchi is who I would have looked for here. Obviously, that's the beauty of these drafts, though. You never know who's going to get picked. So I can't really necessarily say that's a bad pick by Zeman, just not the pick I would have made. Moving along, though, we have Jamie, who decided to pair Himuro up with Iomin. Two mid-range gods. I don't think that's a bad pick here. You're going to have Himuro to really play off Iomin when Iomin, I don't think it's ever really going to be defended, but when Iomin gets defended at all, he can dish the ball over to Himuro, who is a great second option. I don't have too much negative to say about this pick. You obviously have Iomin being able to play the 3 or the 4. I think Himuro could play, honestly, the 2, the 3, realistically, maybe even the 1. But I think that's a good pick all around for Jamie in that position. Himuro, obviously, I think was the last player at that level. After this, we're going to drop off into the uncrowned king level. So Himuro falling to Jamie there. I feel like Jamie may have been obligated to take him there just because he was the last guy at that level available. Either way, though, good person to pair up with Iomin. One pick here left in the second round. We've got Yoshi, who's going to go ahead and take back-to-back picks. He's got the last pick here in